Hello, welcome to Footprint. My name is Samuel Atamensa. We'll be right back and I will delve into the main issues. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back to the program. It's Footprint. And today I'm here with a man whose surname has traversed the last 4 decades across academia, in politics, governance, international community, especially within the West African and African continent. We all know the Ahwois, and when you say the Ahwois, they are always associated with the birthing and development of our Fourth Republic, especially the National Democratic Congress. But today I have with me Mr. Kwamena Ahwoi. Thanks for allowing us into your home, sir.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. So, Kwamena Ahwoi, so you are also at home?
Yes, every Saturday born, male Saturday born Fanti is at Kwamena. And because 2 of us were born on Saturday, we split the name.
You split the name?
The senior one took Ato, and the junior one I took Kwamena.
And then you have Kwesi.
We have Kwesi, and we have 5 sisters.
Wow.
Who, because they are married, have lost their
Ahwois. But I'm sure they still pride themselves with the Ahwoi names.
Oh yes, they do.
Because you have really brought the name out. But anyway, so here we are. As a young person growing up in secondary school and in the university, we always heard the Ahwoi, one Ahwoi or another in the news. At some point one was as a secretary for fuel and power, and then you had a local government, and then you had the other one who used to work in the castle, and then later GIPC. But today we are here because of your good self. How will you describe yourself?
I should say that I'm a very humble, Fanti Sishi man who used to be a boy.
Who used to be what?
A boy. The 4th born of 8 children of Mr. and Mrs. Ahwoi of blessed memory. Mrs. Ahwoi died just about 4 months ago at the ripe old age of 97. And we had very humble upbringing because our father died early. We had our upbringing in Kumasi. But all 8 of us did very well. We all went to school. We all had our first degrees. The 3 boys went to some of the most prestigious universities. Ato went to Harvard, Kwesi went to University of Maryland, I went to Oxford. And I believe that we are very good at what we do. That is why I think the name has gained some fame in the country. Yes.
Which secondary school did you attend?
I did my O-level at Kwapim Secondary School, Kwapim, the best in West Africa.
Oh, okay. At the time, I guess.
Even today.
Oh, you are sure? So some of the people you met, Pokuche.
Yes, I said Robert Pokuche, now the special assistant to the senior minister. Quite a number of doctors, Dr. Michael Osenyakon in the U.S., Dr. William Eduntoso also in the U.S., Dr. Mr. Kwampepra's brother, who was also my classmate, quite a number of them.
Wow.
But the most memorable collection of Pokuari was that I made history there by forming a political party to contest as dining hall prefect. The party was called SAF, Special Student Action Front.
Wow.
My prefects were appointed. When I went to Pokuari, I realized that prefects were elected. So I formed a political party for the first time.
And what was the outcome?
Oh, I won the election.
Because you had the Kumasi vibe already.
Yes.
You had a Kumasi vibe already.
Yes,
that must be interesting.
Yes.
Wow. That's
so I have very fond memories of Opokwari.
That's correct. That's correct. Uwas, they called it.
And Ukwapmai was also Ukwas. I have very fond memories of Ukwas.
Ukwas to Uwas.
Yes.
So you attend both old students. You are associated to both schools.
Yes, both of them. But more with Ukwas than Uwas.
Of course, your O level will count better for. So from there you went to.
I went to the Faculty of Law at the University of Ghana. This was 1997 to 1971. to 1974. Then 1975, I went to Oxford to do
another first degree.
No, they call it the BCL, but it's a master's.
Oh, okay.
That's the Bachelor of Civil Law. That's what they call it. But
so
that's the equivalent
it's a postgraduate.
Yes, it's a postgraduate course. From there, I came back to the University of Ghana to lecture at the law faculty, and it was from there that I was captured into the revolution, starting with a brief stint with the AFRC and then almost full-time with the PNDC.
Okay, so University of Ghana, what were some of your experiences? Who were some of the people who were there at the time you were lecturing?
Oh, Professor, the late President Mills became a colleague lecturer. He actually taught me when I was a student. He taught me commercial law and company law. But when I came back to teach, he was there. Chachuchikata taught me jurisprudence. When I came back to teach, he was there. Professor Akila Pasoya taught me. Professor Kwesi Botwe taught me. Professor Albert Fiajo taught me. Dr. Texan, late Dr. Texan, and quite a number of them.
Is the one who worked at the presidency?
No, he was appointed a High Commissioner to Canada by President Mills.
Yes.
So they were all there.
But some of them joined you in politics.
Chachu, Kwesi Botwe, and at first, to a lesser extent, Professor Mills.
Yeah,
he didn't join us in the PNDC period, but he was working for us a lot in the background, especially the tax area and also company law, and in fact the whole of the economic recovery program. He was one of the technical backstoppers for the team that used to negotiate with the IMF and the World Bank.
Quietly?
Yes, on the quiet.
Oh, nice. Anyway, for those of you who thought that President Mills popped up from nowhere, now you're hearing. So now, tell me, what was your own association with Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah at the time?
I didn't know him when I was a student, but when I came back, he was then Dr. Ivan Adai-Mensah.
The chemistry department.
Yes, chemistry department. And he and I joined, I met him in the club.
How did you hear about Jerry Rawlings in the first place?
As I have indicated in the book, which you have not mentioned yet, the country at that time was very, very hard, very difficult, and I had actually decided to leave. I had in Oxford. I had made a friend, Professor Muna Ndulu, from Zambia, and when he went back to Zambia, he was appointed the dean of the law faculty. So he extended an invitation to me to join the faculty at Zambia, and actually sent me a ticket. I was just about to leave when June 4th happened. And because of what Jerry had done on May 15th, the previous month, which many of the leftists had associated themselves with, including myself, I decided
openly?
Not openly at the time. I decided to stay on and see what would happen and whether I could be of any assistance. Now, again, as I have explained in the book, before June 4th, you know, the SMC, the Supreme Military Council government under General Kufuor at the time, had opened the floodgates for partisan politics. And political parties, SMC2. Political parties had been formed and they were traversing the country campaigning.
That's correct.
And Ivan Adai-Mensah had been identified, or he was actually the lead interviewer for the GTV in those days, in their intellectual programs, and he had been selected to interview the presidential candidates. There were 9 of them: Dr. Hilary Liman, Mr. Victor Usu, Colonel Frank Benasco.
This will be after the coup d'etat.
Before June 4th.
Oh, before June 4th.
Before June 4th.
Okay.
It actually, the recording was done in May.
Oh, okay.
So Adai-Mensah was to interview them. Then just around that time, he was appointed by Dr. Hilary Liman as the General Secretary of the People's National Party, Liman's party. So there was a clear conflict of interest situation. Unknown to me, he had whispered to the GTV that he thought I was the best person to replace him.
Right.
You know. So they approached me, I accepted, and I did the interview, and I must say it came out very, very extremely well.
There were publications about an encounter between yourself and McDiarmid Addy, which was very funny. Remember?
It is actually recounted in the book.
Oh, really?
It had to do with a question that I asked him. Before the interviews, I had done some background research on all of them. And I had learned from the Central Revenue Department, which is today's domestic tax division of the Ghana Revenue Authority. I had learned from them that Diamond Addy operated a very popular secondary school. It was called Jempi
School at Dakuma Junction.
Yes, Ghana Empire Secondary School.
Yes.
I had learned from the Central Revenue Department that the school was not registered with the department. He himself was not a known taxpayer. He had never paid tax. The school had never paid corporate tax. So I asked him that this is what I have found out about you. And that with this record, why should the people of Ghana vote for you to become the president? Whose taxes do you expect to use to govern?
Yes.
And he exploded.
He almost beat you up.
Yes.
Live
he said,
on TV.
Hey, unfortunately it was a recording. He said, hey, I know your type. You have been employed by the CIA to come and spoil my chances. And then he jumped from his chair and was threateningly towards me.
Wow.
So just as your producer is doing, I heard cut. So they cut the thing and all of them jumped in.
Wow.
And I was saved.
Wow.
If they had not done that, I'm sure that I would have been pummeled because I was very tiny at the time. And
well, that guy had a lot of.
Yes.
I still remember, presidential candidate.
Yes.
RDA.
Yes.
Presidential candidate.
Okay. You were not too young then. Yes. So they aborted the interview for the day. They asked us to come the next day, which we did. And of course, I made sure that I didn't ask him any question about his taxes. Yes, and the interview where we went through it successfully. Yeah. Now, I told that story because it was those interviews that catapulted me into the limelight. So when Rawlings staged June 4th, and GTV, again, it was the only public TV station then, they wanted to interview him. The condition he gave was that he would only allow himself to be interviewed by that young law lecturer who interviewed the presidential candidates. So I think on 7th or 8th June, I did an interview with him for both the domestic and international audience. And that is what actually got me into politics. Then I became noticed. That was my first time of meeting Rawlings. That was my first encounter with him. And we became friends after that.
And the rest, they say, is history.
Yes.
Yeah. But before we move on to the Rawlings issue, you had another near bust up with Victor Usu too, based on a question you asked him.
Yes. Again, I have recounted that in the book. It was not really... okay, what happened was this. Victor Usu had a reputation for arrogance. And he knew it because it was one of his weakest points. His political opponents always use it against it. So the very first question I asked him was, why do you think you are special? And he exploded.
One time.
Have I ever said I'm special? Who told you I'm special? In a very irritated voice.
Oh, no.
And when he came down, I says, oh, sir, I'm sorry if I have offended you, but the thing is, you want to lead 10 million people of Ghana. You must have some qualities that make you special. And that is why I'm asking you, what makes you special? In other words, what qualities do you think you are bringing into the leadership position? He was very, very deflated. Yeah, and you could tell that it affected him throughout the interview because he realized that he had goofed. Yes, he realized that he had goofed. There was another encounter with Imori Ayana was also there. His party was called PAP, P-A-P, People's Action Party. Yes, he also, after I had asked me a series of questions with which he was very uncomfortable, he just blurted out, young man, you are biased. And I said, yes, in your favor. Of course, like many people, he thought you could only be biased against something or against somebody. He didn't know you could also be biased in favor of somebody. So again, he was taken aback by that repost.
No, so Imori Igala was the party chairman for
Imori Igala, he wasn't really the chair, he was the founder of the PNP. And he was the one who was tipped to be the presidential candidate. But because of the position he held in the CPP and Nkrumah, he had been banned from holding political and public office by a decree at the time the elections were coming on. So he is the one who discovered and brought in Hilal Liman to replace him.
Good. So now, after everything, you were called to be part of the government. Is that correct?
Yes, in 1982.
Okay.
Actually, 31st December 1981, because I was with Professor Techua Menu moderating a New Year school class at Legon. When somebody, I've forgotten who, peeked into the room and beckoned me. And when I went out, he said, Jerry has done his thing again and he's calling your name on air. So I left the class. I never went back. And then went and heard that he was actually calling my name to report at Gunda Barracks. So I reported and I got stuck there.
So what he would then do is to record the message, which will be
every 30 minutes they were playing it
on radio.
Yes.
So you were invited to report.
Yes, there were actually 10 names that he mentioned. He called. I don't remember the rest. The only one I remember is T.A. Bediakon. He used to be, at the time, he was Secretary General of the NAT, Ghana National Association of Teachers. But he didn't report. I didn't see him there.
He never showed up?
No, he never showed up.
Even later?
No, and I didn't see any of the others.
Did you ever hear of him again?
No. Well, he became the Secretary General of the African Trade Union Teachers Association. We call it ATU. All African teachers, something. He became the secretary.
You didn't want to be part of this one.
Well.
Anyway, so that too. So, but there were other names that later on were mentioned on radio to report at the Gunda Barracks.
If you're talking about those who got involved in government, there were other names that were not mentioned. For example, when I got there, I met Mr. P.V.O. being there. I met Mr. Chachuchikata there. And I met a few others. And we were the ones who actually sat down and...
So when you were going there, did you have an idea of the mission?
Oh, I knew that a coup had been staged.
Yeah, of course. But your role,
No, I didn't know my role. But I have explained in the book that when I got there, after about 1 hour, I was pulled out and taken to another part of Bema camp, where I met Brigadier General Nunu Mensah and General Kwenu. And they said that they were about to form a council, a ruling council, and they wanted me to be a member of the ruling council. I thanked them and told them that I thought I was too young and too inexperienced, to be a member of a ruling council, but I could play a supportive role in the council's secretariat. They understood me, and I got stuck.
Which is what you did.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so you are still watching Footprint on City TV. I'm here with Mr. Kwamena Ahwoi, and we've just laid the foundation, telling us how he got himself into government. And this is just at the beginning. We'll take a short break. When we come back, he will take us through life under the PNDC, working with Rawlings, which happens to be the title of the book that he has written, which I'll be showing to you. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program. This is Footprint. My name is Samuel Atamens. I'm here with the good Professor Kwamena Ahwoi. And where we've gotten to, we are going to talk about this book. Okay. The title is Working with Rawlings, of course, Jerry Rawlings. And I had to hurriedly go through this book, I must say. And I was telling Prof that it's, for me, about the most reflective account of and reflective, professional, and academic account of the whole story of how Rawlings and his team governed this country. I don't know what he has to say to that, but this is the book, Working with Rawlings. If you look at the book, he says that this book is not about Jerry Rawlings, it's not about Kwamena Ahwoi, it's not about the PNDC, it's not about the NDC, but it's a book about Kwamena Ahwoi working with Jerry Rawlings and our working relationships, our ups and downs, our joint commitment to building a better Ghana than we found it. Unfortunately, that commitment is actually the history of everything that happened from 1981 till Rawlings left government. So, you, young lawyer, now found yourself in government. At the time, we are told that one thing that most of you did not bring your attention to is that you are not even paid salaries. And you are not even thinking about that.
It is true that we were not paid salaries because quite a number of us we're doing 2 full-time jobs. From 1982 to 1993, I was a full-time lecturer at the law faculty, the University of Ghana, and I was being paid by the University of Ghana. I was teaching about 3 courses at the University of Ghana, so it was very full-time. And I was also doing full-time work at the PNDC Secretariat. Of course, there were levels of salaries for ministers, which we came to meet. So what happened was that the PNDC Secretariat was paying me the difference between my salary as a lecturer and what I would have earned as a minister. We call it top-up. So they were paying that top-up allowance.
Proper socialists. They didn't want you to be rich.
No. We were also coming from a position of idealism.
Right.
On campus, we had been preaching leftist idealism, socialism, equity, and service to the nation, etc. And we took that into government. So, and because of the state in which we found the country at the time, we thought that our first responsibility was to turn the country around economically, politically, and socially. So that was our main objective. If in the process, we were acknowledged by a token payment, that was really by the way.
So what was your first responsibility?
Between January and August, I was actually operating as a kind of special assistant in Chairman Rawlings' office. I didn't have any specific schedule, but I was assigned responsibilities from time to time. For example, I remember my first major assignment was to join a delegation to Lagos to try and negotiate with President Shehu Shagari to restore oil supplies to Ghana, because in protest against our revolution, he had cut off oil supplies, and we were going through extreme hardships.
This was in 92?
No, this is 82.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. 82.
Yes,
yeah,
82.
Yeah.
So, under the leadership of General Nunu Mensah, President Kufuor was actually released from prison to join the delegation. And
okay. He was still in prison at the time.
Yes, all the officials and parliamentarians of the Third Republic were in custody. We didn't call it prison; they were in preventive custody. So he was.
So you went for him?
Yes, I went for him, and we went
was
and successfully.
That under your influence?
And
your personal influence?
No, I was requested by Chairman Rawlings.
Why would he?
Go and because he knew that I knew him, and he knew that we were associated.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, why did they choose President Kufuor to come out of prison?
Oh, they said he had a certain relationship with President Shehu Shagari.
Okay.
And we thought, and he proved very useful.
But he agreed when you went there?
Oh yes, we went. He gave some conditions which are in the book. Which I don't want to go into, because if I give out too much, people will not buy.
People will buy anyway.
But he gave 2 conditions, both of which Rawlings agreed to fulfill. So we went with him and successfully did the negotiation.
We had the likes of Justice D.F. Annan and the rest who were part of the PNDC proper. What was your relationship with the PNDC, the membership?
I had an excellent relationship with all of them. Yazana actually joined us in 1983. He was not a founding member of the PNDC, but he joined us in 1983. Now, around 1983, after we had gone through some very difficult patches, so many attempted coup d'etats.
That's correct. It was like one every month.
Yes. And in fact, there was a 1 week in which there were three.
Three, yes.
Which culminated in the one that almost succeeded, 19th June 1983, when Halid Ujiwa and his Corporal Halid Ujiwa and his team actually took over Broadcasting House and announced that the PNDC had been overthrown. Yes, but we managed to flash.
And then they ran away.
Yes, they ran away. And now, after that, the far left of the PNDC system actually dissolved. They either went into exile or they went underground. And I think Rawlings decided that it was time to change the face of the PNDC. So he began bringing in elements from the right. Justice Anna was one of them. Mrs. Susan Al-Hassan was not so much to the right. She was a centrist, but she was also brought in. Nathan Kwao was brought in as an advisor, and so many other.
But he was people. A solid one.
Yes, very solid. Anthony Wood and others, they were all brought into the PNDC system, and I think they helped stabilize the system to a very large.
Because Nathan Kwao had been a headmaster before.
Yes, Accra Academy. Yes,
civil servant.
Yeah, very high, top-level civil servant. I mean, he was an institution, and he really helped the regime at the time. So, you asked about my relationship with them. I had a very good relationship. I was managing what we call the judicial and quasi-judicial institutions of the organs of the revolution, and I was actually there from 1982 until 1987, when the PNDC camped about 27 of us in Akuse, to try and come out with a blueprint for decentralization, because I think that was when the talk about eventual return to constitutional rule had started. And the idea was to begin from the bottom with a local government system. So we were camped in Akuse, and we came out after 3 weeks with a small booklet.
Is that the blue book thing?
Yes. Okay. The official title was District Political Authorities and Modalities for District Level Elections. And the cover was blue. So the media immediately named it the Blue Book. And even you have just mentioned it. So it became the Blue Book. Now, at that time, I was a coordinator for investigations, vetting and tribunals. Totobi Kwachi was the PNDC Secretary for Information. But he had had an accident. And I had been asked to act as the PNDC Secretary for Information. So when we finished the assignment, we were tasked. There was a body known as the National Commission for Democracy under Justice Annan. It was tasked to take the Blue Book around the country to get the buy-in of Ghanaians. So we took the book around, and as the Acting Secretary for Information, I was the lead speaker after Justice Annan. And I think we did a very good job. They made a few modifications were made, which we incorporated. And then when we came back, Rawlings called me and said, well, since I have so successfully marketed the book, I should implement the proposals in the book. So he moved me from coordinator to secretary for local government. And so my first task was to convert the proposals in the Blue Book into legislation. So in 1988, we came out with the local government law of 1988, PNDC law 207. That was when the district assemblies were first mentioned in the Blue Book, then given legislative cover in PNDC law 207. The district level elections were held for the first time in November, December 1988 and January 1989, and the district assemblies were inaugurated in March 1989. And the rest, as they say, is history.
So 92 elections, and then 93, you were appointed again?
Yes. The process for transition actually started with the district assemblies. And it's important because I was involved in all of that. Because when the district assemblies came on stream, then we used them as the basis to invite suggestions for the political structures above the district level. And so we went around the regions, met with the assemblies and invited other stakeholders. And then the ideas that we put together into a document, a book that the NCD calls Evolving a True Democracy. It is in that document that we stated, with Jasana as chairman, that the preference of the people of Ghana was for a return to multi-party democracy. People were very skeptical when we started, but when we submitted that report, as soon as it was submitted, President Rawlings, or Chairman Rawlings, had put together a team that was called Committee of Experts Constitution, chaired by Nana Dr. S.K.B. Asante. It included members like Dr. Kudia Farijan, who later became the EC chairman, the Domahine at the time, Dr. Nana, something I've forgotten, Mrs. Justice Ani Jaji, the late, who was a Court of Appeal judge, and others. There were 9 of them. So as soon as...
But Esume Jahine was not part of it.
No, he was part of the interim national electoral INEC.
With John Sofori Boateng.
Yes,
okay.
Josiah
Sofori Boateng. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the NCD document was immediately handed over to the Committee of Experts. Then they converted it into constitutional proposals. Those proposals were then put before a consultative assembly, which was the most controversial steps in the process of transition, because people objected to the composition.
Because they said, assembly,
they said we had included butchers, hairdressers, Apetashi distillers, etc.
And Kofi Kumsin's Ghanaian Chronicle was loud.
Yes,
was
very loud. In fact, so much so that the Ghana Bar Association, which was giving representation on it, they boycotted it, and the National Union of Ghana Students also boycotted it. But that body debated the proposals and came out with a draft constitution for the Fourth Republic. Now, that draft constitution was immediately put to a referendum, which was held on 28 April 1992. And the referendum was a two-part question. The referendum question was a two-part question. Do you accept the constitution submitted by the Consultative Assembly to be the Constitution of Ghana to come into force on 7th January 1993? This referendum was held on 28th April 1992. So if you said yes, you were accepting the Constitution and you were also accepting the effective date of 7th January 1993. That is why the 1993 Constitution is referred to as the 1992 Constitution, because it was approved in 1992. About 93% of the electorate voted in favor of the Constitution, and that is how the Fourth Republic was born.
Good. Right, so this is still Footprint, and I'm with Professor Kwamena Ahwoi. Everything he's saying and more will be found in this book, Working with Rawlings. And so he will later tell us how to get a copy of the book. And I have read this book, and I tell you, but kudos to the likes of Kofi Kumsin, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why after this break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back. This is Footprint on City TV, and I'm here with Professor Kwamena Ahwoi. I know you've been following, but there's a lot more you will get if you bought this book, and we'll be telling you where to get it. Working with Rawlings, and for those of you who are even academic references, those of you who are writing essays about governance in Ghana, and a lot. If you don't have the full story here, definitely you have the lead that will lead you to something. Now, I talked about Kofi Kumsin. The reason I talk about Kofi Kumsin is that there are lots of things that I saw in this book, I read in this book, which Kofi Kumsin had given us hints about. He probably may not have had the full story accurately, but the fragments, the issues that were, and so I think he did a good job. For instance, we had heard at the time that Rawlings was not too happy letting go of his PNDC, and allowing multi-party democracy. Prof, you were there. How true was that?
Well, it was true to a certain extent. After all, Rawlings had overthrown a democracy, a multi-party democracy. And if he thought it was the best form of government, maybe he may not have overthrown it. So getting him to give up power and lead us into another multi-party democracy was not a decision that was to be taken lightly by him.
Yeah. But fact that he brought people like yourselves along would also throw out the indication that he wanted to legitimize his governance.
Yes. So maybe at the end of the day, we were the ones who prevailed on him to do that, because we made two arguments to him. First of all, domestic opposition to the PNDC was coalition. The students, the intellectuals, the middle class, etc., they had begun serious agitation for a return to constitutional rule. And then secondly, we said we were doing a revolution. But revolutions all over the world were collapsing. Eastern Europe had collapsed. The Soviet Union had collapsed. The Berlin Wall had come down, and so on and so forth. So we urged upon him that we could not be in a state of permanent revolution, and that at some point we would need to hand over to, or we would need to transit into constitutional rule. It took a lot of effort, and I must give the credit to Justice Annan and Captain Chikata. They were most influential in getting him to come around.
The whole program.
Yes, but at the end of the day, once he accepted it, he led the charge.
Okay.
And he was very, very enthusiastic about the processes leading to constitutional rule.
Great. And so once the veil was lifted, there was then the formation of the political parties at the time. Now tell me quickly, between the Eagle Party and the NDC, now, what's the story?
There's no story,
Oh, there is.
Eagle Party came up first. When the rumors about a return to constitutional rule started, a group of people got together and said that they would want to sponsor John Rawlings to lead a party. So they formed what they call the Eagle Club. So the Eagle Party actually started as the Eagle Club.
Yeah.
Now, when the ban on political party was lifted and they wanted to register the Eagle Party, it was actually Eagle, E-A-G-L-E. The INEC, Interim National Electoral Commission, then under Josiah Ofori-Boateng, Justice Josiah Ofori-Boateng, refused to accept the name and the symbol because he said the eagle was part of our national coat of arms, and therefore it would be inappropriate for a political party to appropriate it as its own. So as for the eagle, it was not accepted, but they cleverly changed the name from eagle to Egle. And they said it stood for every Ghanaian living everywhere.
Yeah.
So, now, as that was going on, the PNDC itself, this club was formed outside of the PNDC system.
Who were the leaders?
There's
Daniel Furata.
Daniel Furata was one of them. Then
was Michael Susudis
was part of them. Quite a number of people. The PNDC system itself was also holding consultations. They were not, or we were not very sure whether we could win an election. So we sent emissaries around the country, and they came back with a report that not only was the PNDC very popular, but that it would win any election if John Rawlings was the leader. So we decided to form a party. In fact, we discussed along these lines that either we will build a house or we will rent a house or we will abandon the house. Building the house was forming our own party. Renting a house was joining one of the established political traditions. And abandoning the house means ending PNDC and everybody find your own way. But at the end of the day, we decided that we will build a house. And we, in the discussions, because they said PNDC was popular, they said, okay, we have to find a way of letting that name remain in the ears of the electorate. Since the P in the PNDC was provisional. If we were ending the provisional, let's drop the P, retain the NDC, and then I remember the words very well. They say, you Buglon people, go and find something that the NDC will stand for. And that's how we came up with the National Democratic Congress. So that's how the NDC was
very intriguing.
Yes.
How the connectedness.
Yes.
Very nice. I'm sure a lot of us are hearing this for the first time. So come NDC, and you are still part of it, and because we don't have time, we'll just want to talk about some of the major issues. Rawlings was there. Rawlings 1,
Okay.
Rawlings 2.
There was Rawlings 1, there was Rawlings 2. The major incident in that period, of course, the PNDC went into an alliance with the NDC went into an alliance with the NCP, the National Convention Party.
Yeah.
And therefore, the leader of the NCP, called Kensanaka, as part of the negotiations, was foisted on Jerry Rawlings as his running mate. So
I like the word foisted.
Yes, yes.
I thought you went into an alliance.
But
it comes with an exchange.
No, yes, it comes with an exchange. But the personality, Jerry Rawlings, his preference was not Akka.
I am sure if Akka had a preference, he wouldn't have chosen him as well.
So he became the vice president, and from day one, things were not good between them. It led to a situation.
But a lot of the Fantis were expecting you and your quote and unquote Fanti caucus to save Akka.
No, Akka was beyond salvation.
Stubborn cat.
Yes, very stubborn cat. No, especially when the problems reached their climax with his affair with that little girl that created Ojima Mayali, that created all the problem. That's when he became even more stubborn. And so we were faced with an impossible situation.
Yeah.
But because it was Jerry who was at the receiving end, Ghanaian opinion leaders, I think we were very happy that it was happening to Jerry. Because here you had a situation where the vice president of the ruling government was also the vice presidential candidate of the opposition party.
Yeah.
And he was attending cabinet meetings and making governance impossible.
Is that why Rawlings beat him?
He didn't beat him.
He gave him a blow.
No, he didn't give him a blow. I was at that cabinet
meeting. But he tore his
He didn't
clothes.
tear his coat. He did not. You were not. I was there. There was
his clothes got torn.
Do you want to listen to an eyewitness account, or you want to substitute, imagination? There was an incident. Both of them fell on the ground.
Between the two of them.
Yes, but Commodore Steve Obimpe, who is a military person, he had been Navy commander, he was seated next to Akka. He very, very quickly jumped into the fray, separated them
from fighting.
Yes, and Akka left. His coat was not torn.
That's strange.
Yes.
That's very strange.
We also saw a picture in which his coat was torn.
Okay.
But when he was leaving the cabinet,
it wasn't torn.
No.
Then that's very strange. Yes. In fact, that's very wicked.
Because he went to the IGP to report that he had been assaulted by President Rawlings.
I was there.
Yes.
I was at the Cantonment police station where he came with a torn
Yes, he needed evidence. And
so
what
he
better
did it
evidence
himself.
than a torn coat? I don't know how it
Somebody
happened.
must have done it.
But I am telling you that the incident was of such a nature that his coat could not have been torn.
But that's a pity.
And when he was leaving, his coat was not torn.
Wow.
But it is true that there was an incident. Anyway, so as a result of that, we had to look for a running mate for President Rawlings. And a lot fell on me. I suggested that Professor Mills would be a good candidate. So President Rawlings sent me to go and talk to him. I went with my wife to his house. We met him and his wife. We spoke. I was not successful.
He was still in Legon?
Yeah, he was still in Legon. I was not successful, so I got my brother Atu involved. He and Atu were closer than he and I. So Atu managed to convince him, and he came into the picture. And then we went for the election. Rawlings won, and Mills became the vice president. Yes.
Wow. So then he became vice president, Rawlings 2.
Rawlings 2, he became the vice president, and then when we were getting into the 2000 election,
that's where the controversy started.
That's when the problems began, because as a party, we did not have a succession plan after Jerry Rawlings. And so a lot of people had lined up their boots and they were waiting. And I think they were putting a lot of pressure on President Rawlings. And as a way of diverting that pressure, I think he went and made that declaration in Swedru. many people did not actually know the exact wording of that declaration. He didn't say that Mills was his successor. What he said was that if Mills decided to contest, he, Rawlings, would support Mills. That's the way he put it. But by making that declaration, he had signaled to all the interested parties that this is my chosen successor in whom I am well pleased.
Okay, but isn't that strange? Because I see the contradiction with that, even that statement, because being in the media at the time very actively, I remember that we got some shipment about Nana Kunedu for 2000 election, which for us in the media indicated that she had nursed the thinking of also becoming a flag bearer. And your husband was endorsing somebody else. I think that's where the contradiction came.
Yes, I didn't see that consignment you are talking about. I heard about it, and all of us heard about it, but I don't think they were ever offloaded. So
okay, we heard. I wouldn't say that I saw it myself.
We also heard. So when I talked about people who were lacing their boots, I believe that Nana Kunedu was one of them.
Well, later she
later she showed by challenging Professor Mills that she was also interested. So I am not sure you are calling it a contradiction, but I am saying that maybe Jerry didn't want to do something that would appear to be a dynastic succession.
That makes sense.
From me to my wife. I suspect he didn't want that. Yeah. But it was not easy for him to tell the Nana Kunedu directly that don't do it. You can't do it. Because Jerry is a liberal. He wouldn't want to dictate to his wife. So his way of indirectly telling her and the others who were also interested was by endorsing Professor Mills.
And it happened in Swedru, on the soil of Swedru,
in
the central region.
Yes.
Very close to your hometown.
Yes.
Wow.
No, my hometown is Aguna Mankron.
Oh, Mankron.
Yes.
Okay. It's in the same general area.
The same district.
Oh, lovely. Now, see, after this one, I still remember the whole Congress, which really cemented the President Mills. What's your own account of this whole Congress?
I have given a very detailed account of that Congress. I narrated 4 incidents, which I think created problems for that Congress. First of all, the choice of the Congress theme was problematic. The choice of the theme was continuity in change. Now, this was interpreted by the MPP and others to mean personalities were changing, but policies would not change. And the expectation of people, including some people in the NDC, was that Jerry had been there for 19 years. If he was leaving, then some of his policies should change. So if Mills was coming to continue his policies, then why even have him at all? So that was one of the problems. The other was that many of in fact, vast majority of the Congress delegates came there in Atta Mills t-shirts.
Rightly so, yeah.
But at that time, Jerry was the incumbent president. And so it was almost like, even when we have not left, you want to forget about us.
But Prof, they were sharing the t-shirts right at the Congress grounds, under the trees there.
Yes, I know.
They were sharing.
Yes, the point I am making is that for some of Jerry's supporters, they thought it was a betrayal of Rawlings because he was still president and they expected him to be there. But for those who were sharing and those who were wearing, their argument was that it is Professor Mills who is going to be on the ballot. And we have come to endorse him as the candidate. Therefore, we must begin to market him by advertising him.
So you wore the t-shirts too, yourself? I
wore it. I had a little problem which I have recounted in the book.
Tell us more.
No. If I tell you too much, the people will not buy the book. Let them go and buy. But I had a little problem. It wasn't just because me and Totobi.
Oh, you both had your nice Atta t-shirts.
Yes, and we had to change.
And you were threatened.
Yes, we had to change. Yes. And then, of course, I said 4, but I forgot the third. But the major issue was the statement that Mills was supposed to have made, that I will consult Rawlings morning, noon, and night. there's a history behind it.
Yeah.
And in this book, I have admitted responsibility. I was the one who crafted that statement. And I actually sent it to him when he was on the stage. It wasn't part of his his original.
But just to give the man some comfort.
Yes. And I've gone into some detail in the book as to why I did it.
Prof, before we go, John Rawlings was still not happy about this whole arrangement.
What I can say is that because of her challenge to President Mills in 2011, or is it 2011?
Yeah. Actually, I'm still talking about 2000.
Yes, I'm saying that because of her later challenge, you could be right in saying that she was not happy in 2000 when all these things were happening, because she always had an eye on the trophy.
Okay.
But
we were also told, and I read from the Ghanaian Chronicle, that John Rawlings and Nadu Mills at the time had serious problems.
Yes, there was an incident involving the two of them, which I have interpreted as the beginning of the problem between Rawlings and Mills. I refer to it as the Afiade-Nyigba incident, because it happened at Afiade-Nyigba, in the Greater Accra region, the Dangbe West. It's in the Dangbe West district of the Greater Accra region. Again, it's one of those that one of the things I want people to read about. I don't want to talk about it.
There's still
there was a problem between them, as a result of which Nadu Mills pulled out of the campaign.
Wow, midstream.
Yes, the campaign for her husband.
Because that's actually supposed to be her area, is that correct?
She comes from there. Yeah. Then she was campaigning in that area for her husband.
Wow.
But after the incident, she pulled out.
And that was it.
Yeah. Nadu continued campaigning for Mills, but Nadu pulled out.
Anyway. But again, quick one. So 2000, and then, but later on, we also heard that the Ahwois went their separate ways with the Rawlingses. Can you confirm that?
A number of incidents occurred, but I think the major one that really created the problem was in 2006, when Professor Mills was supposed not to be well, and Rawlings, I think, was trying to find a replacement for him as the NDC candidate. So he approached my senior brother, Ahwoi, to contest Professor Mills in the NDC primaries. Yes. And we took offense because Jerry knew the role that Ahwoi had played in getting Professor Mills out of the comfort of academia to come and join the turbulence of Ghanaian politics. He knew that there was a very close camaraderie between us, and especially Ahwoi and Professor Mills.
Yes.
And therefore, as I have recounted it in the book, I thought that he was asking us to betray. Professor
At this
Mills.
point, what was the role of Eddie Annan?
Eddie Annan was not yet in the race, but I think when Ahwoi refused,
the lot fell on him.
Yes, Eddie Annan was.
But he was a very close associate of Mills when Mills was vice president.
Mills was literally living in his house. Every morning when he was vice president, before he went to work, he would go and swim in his house for 3 hours.
And they used to walk around cantonments together.
Yes, they were very close friends. And, later, Eddie Annan himself regretted the action.
Of course,
I've explained it here.
Yeah.
And that is what would have happened if Ahwoi had agreed to contest him. So it was from that time that, we got upset, or the drifting apart started. And it got worse when Mills became president and Jerry began his attacks on him.
Oh, he attacked Mills?
Oh, were you not in Ghana?
Well, I mean, I'm here. I've been in Ghana throughout the account of this book, but you have a lot to say more than I do.
Didn't you hear about Atta Mochiriman?
No, that was a Mochiriman's reference.
Do you think that it was just for nothing that he told that story? And the Konongo Kaya, do you know what Konongo Kaya means?
With this particular reference, no, I don't. I know Konongo Kaya generally, but with reference to Atta Mills.
The man's name was Atta.
Atta the Mochiriman.
Yes, Atta Mochiriman.
Who born dog?
Who used to dress people nicely when their bodies were brought to Tete Kwashi. And he himself, nobody was very sure what was going to happen to him when he died.
Wow.
And then Konongo Kaya, the man, he's not well, so he cannot govern. He won't leave it for somebody else to come and do it. I mean, there are all kinds of innuendos,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
so that's actually rather deepen the cracks.
yes, because as I have explained, there was one particular incident which caused President Mills nearly to resign. In fact, he resigned. The only thing that saved this country...
As president?
Yes. The only thing that saved this country was that he called to tell me that he was resigning. And
he spoke in Fanti?
Yes, we used to. What's Major?
Major?
I was in a Bri. I was at an IA workshop at a Bri. He said, Kwamena, at the Jericho Kikenwo, Tamalina, because people are listening, I have to speak English.
No, feel free.
Have you heard what Jerry has gone to say about me in Tamale? I said, no, I haven't heard. He said, get the audio and listen to it, because I have resigned and I don't want anybody to try to stop me. Yes. And I said, Mr. President, I believe that you have resigned. You have decided to resign. But I also believe that you are not sure you have taken the right decision. You want a second opinion. Otherwise, you wouldn't have called to tell me.
Correct.
I would have heard about it in the media. So please, can you let me consult my gang? That's how I put it. He said, okay. So I called Captain Chikata, and he said I should arrange for us to go and see him. And then I should bring him to Kwache. So on a Sunday evening, we went.
Uncle Ato didn't go.
No, he didn't. There were some, there are different issues, different conspirators. So we went, and he had actually packed his things, his suitcases, everything, ready to go.
Oh, you mean he was leaving?
Yes.
Why?
So we talked for about 4 hours, till about 12 midnight, and we managed to convince him to stay because we were taking certain corrective measures, etc. We were successful in those measures, and as a result, he stayed. But otherwise, he was going to resign on account of,
the harassment
the way that he thought John Rawlings was treating him.
Wow. Anyway, so this is Professor Kwamena Ahwoi's account working with John Rawlings. Now, look, it has a lot more detail in this book. So, Prof, how do we get copies of the book?
After the launch on Thursday, they will be available. The book will be available at the following bookshops: the Kingdom Bookshop at Legon, EPP Bookshop Labadi, Bachona, Total Filling Station, Citrus Bookshop, ANC Mall, Kingdom Bookshop Osu, Vidya Bookshop Osu, Airport City Shell Filling Station, my own office, Center for Democratic Transitions, Ghana, near the European Union office, opposite Aquinas Secondary School, EPP Bookshop Legon, Holiday Inn Hotel Shop at Airport City. And you can also order it online from the publishers, www.digibookspublishing.com. They are also arranging to have it on sale at Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon. Okay.
So it will be.
I see that you don't have outlets in Kumasi. Maybe
in fact, I was going to talk about it. Since these promotions began, I have been inundated with calls.
Yeah, but EPP will be there.
Yes. In fact, just before you came in, I had a call from WA. They asked me, how many copies do you have in a box? I said 30. They said, bring us 10. I said, what? I know that there's a market for it.
Okay, so Working with Rawlings is the book, and it's by Professor Kwamena Ahwoi. And I say that this by far is the most reflective, professional, academic, contextualized account of the period between 1982 to 2000. Prof, thank you very much for your time.
Unfortunately, we cannot shake hands.
Yes, by the reason of COVID. But we are still very grateful. A big God bless you. For people like yourselves who have had experience and have decided to put it down into writing for the next generation to be able to make good references to. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
And for you that are listening to us, it's been Footprint with Professor Kwamena Ahwoi. My name is Samuel Atamensa. Thanks for watching.